Hello YouTube, this is Power Surge. I wanted to talk to you today about the approaching economic collapse. And you may be saying, wait Power Surge, what did you just say? And yes, based on several factors I'm going to discuss in a moment, we are definitely facing an economic collapse or a huge financial disaster within the next 10 years, but most likely sooner, and maybe right around the corner. Now, a few years ago when I first learned this fact that the debt is unsustainable and the system will eventually crack, it terrified me. I took it really harshly. At the time, I was going through some personal losses. My most beloved people in my family were passing away, and it was a very traumatic time in my personal life that I happened to stumble upon this information. So I took it really harsh. I kind of used it as a void to fill pain that I was taking at the time because of people dying. And because of that, I started to go down the road of one of those crazy people that thinks the world is going to end. And I want to say right off the bat that the world is not going to end. It is definitely going to change. Things will change in the future without a doubt. But don't go down the road of doom and gloom because it won't get you anywhere. It won't help you out. And it won't help you prepare for the future in any way. But it is something we must face. The economy will eventually collapse based on a few things that I want to talk about right now. So if you haven't noticed, America has had escalating riots almost every few weeks now at some place in this country. People have been burning stuff down. They've been going absolutely crazy. This is not a good sign. It's definitely a sign that the people are not happy. There's racial tensions. There's tensions between police and everyday people. The poor are really struggling and being squeezed tightly right now. We also see escalating terrorist attacks. The incidents with the bombs on the East Coast here in the United States. France has had really awful terrorism, and the war in Syria continues to escalate. There's no doubt that we're also going to face more frequent and more devastating terrorist attacks in the coming future. I just went down to the courthouse in my town today. There's a lot of homeless people in tents that I'd heard about there, but I hadn't seen it until today with my own eyes. Currently, you have a huge amount of homeless people. Homelessness is at all-time highs. A lot of these people are young people that have been afflicted by heroin addiction. To be honest, heroin has really screwed up a lot of people in my generation. But a lot of those people are living on the street. They're not producing anything. They're not paying taxes. They're sucking from the system one way or another. And most of them, pretty much all of them, I'm sure, have EBT. So EBT recipients are at an all-time high. This is another sign that things are not going very good for the United States economy. And people are really relying on that EBT. If something were to happen to that EBT card, a lot of people would be really hungry and they would start to go crazy. We have all-time high government debt. The government debt is going up and up. You can check on the debt clock, which I'll leave a link below in the description. But this displays all the different debts in the monetary supply, all the numbers of our economy that are going up and down. And government debt is increasing because the government needs money. It's broke. We're close to $20 trillion in debt as of this video, which is early October 2016. You have insane amount of student loan debt. I think it's around 1.3, close to $1.4 trillion in student loan debt. That's a huge amount of people in my generation in their early 20s to mid 30s that are not going to be able to contribute a lot to the economy because they have a student loan to pay. They're not going to be able to buy houses, maybe buy cars, other things like that until they pay off that loan. And there's a ton of people with student loans, and a bunch of those loans are in default. So this shows that people can't even pay them back. Another sign that things are not going so good here in the United States. We're seeing corruption in banking. We have issues in Europe with Deutsche Bank currently, but we're seeing things like Wells Fargo that created fake accounts in order to inflate its stock price and to screw over other people. And this type of thing is what happened around 2007, 2008. We had issues with the banks. This is really evil stuff that they've done. I mean, I never would have trusted Wells Fargo with my money to begin with, but I feel really bad for people who did and that got screwed. This is not good because the banks are the financial institutions of this country. And if people start to lose confidence in the banks and they pull their money from the banks, perhaps, that's when everything really starts to implode. We've had a lot of money printing by the Federal Reserve as of the last couple of years. They had to print money in order to save us back in 2008, but we've also been printing over the last few years. The Fed balance sheet is about $5 trillion, and this is inflation before we see it. This is currency creation. This type of thing is not good. A healthy economy isn't printing money. This is something that Rome and other cultures did. They devalued their currency, and that was one of the things that led to the eventual collapse of their empires. We've also had a 0% interest rate for way too long. The interest rates have been really low, and they've done this to try to stimulate the economy. Why would that stimulate the economy? Obviously, if interest is super low, then people can borrow for stuff. And if people can borrow to buy things, if interest is low, then the price of those things will be elevated. So, for example, I made the bad mistake of buying a new car. And I'll make another video about why that was a bad mistake. But the interest was 0%. And I thought, this is great. I get a 0% interest. It's all going to principal, what a great deal. When in fact, the interest rate was 0, but that allowed the price to be exorbitantly high. And a new car devalues incredibly fast. Low interest rates have caused people to get a lot of debt, including myself. I took the bait, and I consider myself kind of a money savvy guy, but I took the bait and I got a car because the debt was like super cheap. These low interest rates brings up the prices of housing, the prices of other assets. It has helped inflate the stock market. So there's way too much money currently in the stock market. As you know, the Dow has been breaking its highs lately, but it's getting very choppy and volatile. And we're approaching a cycle where it looks like these markets may roll over. And if you think about cyclically, we generally have a crash in the stock market every 7 or 8 years. We had one in 2000, we had one in 2007, 2008, and we're right about that time for another one of these stock market crashes, just based on a timeline of cycles. But cheap credit has caused so many people to get in debt. If you're on the road today, look around. You'll see pretty much everyone is in a new car. There's a lot of new cars on the road. People have overextended themselves. Credit cards are easier to get than ever. If there's a deflationary crash or business slows down for people, if restaurants aren't getting money, if people aren't going out and spending money, how are people going to pay off that credit that they took out? On top of all this stuff, we have healthcare costs at all-time highs. My mom is constantly complaining to me about how they keep asking for her income every year and all this stuff to adjust her rate for her healthcare plan, and her healthcare plan is really expensive compared to what it used to be. Young people have healthcare plans. Some of them are good. Some of them are not really necessary. Personally, I had medical care before Obamacare kicked in, and I've had to purchase different health insurance through the system, and I'm not getting any extra care that I would have gotten. So healthcare costs are going up for young people, but they're really going up for old people. But there's a lot of people out there, like my pops, who's in his 50s, that just doesn't have insurance because he can't afford the health insurance, and they just pay the penalty. Cost of living, especially in California here, has gone through the roof. It's insane. Rent is super high. Rent is at all-time highs here in Southern California. I don't know about other places in the country, but I've heard rents are high in other cities as well. The price of food has not inflated a lot, but the quality has definitely gone down. I believe, too, we're getting smaller portions than we used to, and there's definitely been some inflation in food in the last 5-6 years. When I go to buy milk, bananas, apples are like $1.29 a piece if you want organic. So that is really an expensive price for food lately. Labor participation rate is at 30-year lows. And this is really obvious from me as a millennial when I look at some of the people in my own generation. A lot of them, either they just don't want to work because they're lazy, or they are not working because they don't have a good job. Even if they are working, many of them are not making what we all should be making or what past generations our age would have been making. The economy has been particularly harsh on my generation. A lot of them graduated high school right after the crisis or graduated college right after the crisis, some of them with debt. Fortunately, I've been okay, but labor participation is super low. This is not good because we need people working so they can pay taxes, to pay the government, to pay all of its liabilities that it can't pay for, and all the other stuff that it wants to spend money on, like weapons in Syria and stuff like that. We've got median family income at 30-year lows. Families are not making what they used to make. Family savings is also incredibly low. As I said before, and as this little clip in the side is going to show you, homelessness is at all-time highs. Tons of people are homeless, tons of young homeless people, tons of drug-addicted homeless people. This is not good for the economy. These people, sad to say, are parasitic on the society. They need help, but we don't have a system that will help them. There really is no way to save most of these people unless their family reaches out or someone really puts effort and cares for them and tries to save them. But a lot of these homeless people, they may end up dying on the streets, as sad as that is. All right, the real thing that is going to crash the economy, though, we have so many baby boomers that are approaching retirement age. A lot of them are going to be cashing out their 401k, cashing out their retirement plans, cashing out their pension plans. They're going to be pulling money which is connected to what? The stock market. So a lot of retirees are going to be pulling their retirements. That is going to be a huge downward pressure on the stock market. So a lot of these baby boomers retiring, they're not going to be working. It's a huge amount of the population that's not going to be paying taxes, but they are going to be withdrawing Social Security and other benefits from the system. So there's not enough young people going into the workforce, making enough money to be taxed to take care of these liabilities that the government has promised the baby boomers. That's about all I've got to say. If you've enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful or informative, please feel free to share it. Click the like button, give it a thumbs up. You can hit subscribe. I'll be making more videos all the time. Feel free to check out my main channel where I party and show some of my personal life. There's a link for that in the description. Thanks for watching. This is Power Surge, and have a great day.